friends, welcome back to Cake Over Keto, your non-diet podcast that stands up against diet culture so you can eat the goddamn cake without anxiety and guilt. I'm Mel Wakeman, registered nutritionist, intuitive eating practitioner, non-diet counsellor and lover of cake. I specialise in disordered eating and recovering from chronic dieting, weight and body image concerns, all through a weight-inclusive lens. Cake Over Keto is a fortnightly slice of food and body truth with dollops of compassion and sprinkles of salvation. I am standing in your corner, calling out the diet industry bullshit whilst providing a safe, healing space for those on their way to food and body freedom. There may be talk of cake and carbs from the point of view that they are necessary for me if I don't want to poke someone in the eye with a pencil. But so you are aware, I may mention body weight, calories, and the O word. I will do all of these things today, but there will always be context. Please be mindful if you are triggered by these, however. In this episode of MyFitnessPal is not your pal, I'm going to share how these tracking apps, and I'm picking on MyFitnessPal because it's the most popular one, can influence what and why we eat. I'll share some of the potential benefits of doing this, but mostly I'll be explaining how they can really screw with the relationship we have with food and our body. I explain why calorie counting, food, weight and exercise tracking can become distractions that take you away from living your life. And for some, they can take you to a dark place. And at the end, I'll dip into my pick and mix. No spoiler alert today, you'll just have to wait and see. So without further ado, get yourself a cuppa, get yourself somewhere comfy, perhaps the loo if you need a quiet spot, and join me for 20-ish minutes of insight. While the kettle boils, if you'd like to get in touch, please do. You can find me on Instagram at Cake Over Keto, in my food freedom community on Patreon, Mel Wakeman, all one word, or you can email me at mel@wakemannutrition.com. I would love to hear your views on this one. Have you ever tracked your food, or maybe your exercise and weight, on a mobile device, with an app on your phone? I'm talking about the general food diary apps like MyFitnessPal, NutriCheck, Lose It. To be honest, I'm reluctant to say any more names, and there's bloody loads of them, because this is not a promo advert for them. Because my worry with some of them is they encourage a disordered relationship with food and your body. Now, I don't want this to be a blanket slating exercise because there can be benefits for some. The raising of awareness of food intake and consumption, the knowledge acquisition, a perceived sense of control. You may be fine with that, but some people aren't. So let's first talk about what these little things called calories are. For me, they are a unit of life-giving energy. Energy we need to dance, laugh, walk, to sing, hug, love and cry. Doesn't that sound much more applicable to life than the scientific definition, which is raising the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius? That doesn't mean a lot, really. So yeah, for some, calories don't cause a problem. They just are. No obsession, no scrutinizing, no stress. There are quite a number of people, however, who don't find them so innocuous. And if this is you, you are not alone by far. A study in 2018 by Elizabeth Ike and co., the link is in the show notes, suggests the majority of food tracking app users are influenced to start by a desire to lose weight, despite incidentally being a healthy weight in most instances. And we're not talking small user numbers here, like MyFitnessPal, around 200 million plus users. And the numbers have kind of rocketed over the pandemic. Another study by Cherry Levison and co., this is a year earlier. Now, they only assessed 105 people with diagnosed eating disorders, but they found that 73% of participants perceived MyFitnessPal as contributing to their eating disorder. And their symptoms included obsessive behaviours, food restraint issues, binge eating, over-evaluation of shape and weight, dichotomous thinking, and psychosocial impairment. None of these are healthy responses. So basically, there is a real risk that general health apps like MyFitnessPal can worsen health outcomes for many. And I know countless people, me included, who absolutely regret ever starting to track food and exercise and weight on an app. For me, those numbers became imprinted in my brain. You could have given me any food and I'd have told you the calorie per pack or portion, just like that. I was like a human database. And once those numbers are in, it's hard to get them out, to see past them, to not see food just as a number, as something to earn or avoid. So the reasons why tracking can be a problem is that it has the potential to elicit a black and white, good or bad, all or nothing style thinking. And numbers can feed particularly into perfectionist style thinkers. And ultimately, they become a way for people to quantify their self-worth. So, for example, if you eat holier than thou foods, low-calorie foods, good foods, and don't exceed your calorific target, you might experience a boost in self-esteem and sense of worth. On the other hand, if you go over your calorific target, you might think that you're a failure and you won't be able to accomplish anything. So here are some comments from some users. Probably the most ridiculous thing I'd weigh would be a lettuce leaf. I needed to know everything that was going into my body. Someone else said, I'd avoid all the homemade stuff. I would only pick packaged stuff that I could put into the app. Someone else said, when I had a binge, a big loss of control, I still logged it because it fed into this false warped illusion of control that I was in control, but it was controlling me. And someone else said, I would deliberately put wrong data into the app to encourage me to lose weight. So I'd over-record the number of calories I'd eaten and under-record my exercise. I was in denial of my purging and that I had a problem. And in my experience working with clients with disordered eating or eating disorders who track, they become reliant on the data provided by the tracking process and the app itself. That data informs their decisions about what to eat, how much to eat, when to eat, how often to exercise, and how hard to exercise. But the thing is, no one, no app, no doctor, not even me can tell you exactly the number of calories that you need in a day, because it changes all the time based on so many things. And I'm not just talking about, your age, your gender, your weight, or your height. I mean stress levels, what you ate earlier or yesterday, how you slept, your hormones, so much stuff. But externalizing this knowledge acquisition and giving that power to an app, it disempowers us. You lose awareness of your own body's messages. So you no longer know what it's like to honor your hunger and fullness, to respect your desire to move or rest. You know what a 5K run feels like, to burn off a slice of cheesecake, but not going for a walk for the joy of walking. So that disconnection from your body means you lose trust with it and ultimately don't feel safe in the very place you were born to call home. So if you've noticed that you've been becoming obsessive about what you eat, how you move your body, you worry about how you look, if your thoughts are becoming more intrusive, it could be a good idea to examine your relationship with any tracking device that you are using. And if you'd like to talk to me about some of the things I've discussed in this episode, then please do get in touch. My contact details are in the show notes. So next I want to talk about the backroom stuff on these tracking apps. The magic formulas they have to help you personalize your experience. That explains where the 1200 calories come from, potential sources of error you're not told about, public service announcement. MyFitnessPal is not 100% accurate. So I'm going to be talking more about calories and weight loss. So if you don't want to listen to this, I would fast forward by about 4 minutes and then I'll see you in a bit later. So MyFitnessPal uses the Mifflin-Sanjior equations to estimate your basal metabolic rate. I repeat, it's an estimate. This is not an exact science. And just to be sure we know what basal metabolic rate means, it's the minimum amount of energy your body needs to just be resting, breathing, not eating, not moving, existing maybe, but not living your life. So this limit doesn't mean that's the most you need to have, okay? Now, the equations that this calculation uses your height, weight, gender, and age, and it's considered a more recent, I think it was introduced in 1990, and it's a more accurate calculation compared to the good old Harris-Benedict equation I used when I was at school. Apparently the new one is better for individuals, but then they still stick to that really crude way of telling you all you need to do to lose weight is create a calorie deficit. And you do that by eating less and maybe moving more because, yep, it's really that simple. But God, that whole calories in, calories out, it's so antiquated and it's just plain wrong. Never mind the fact that a calorie can't tell you how good a food is going to taste, how it can nourish your body, meet your needs, how it can satisfy you, how it can tell you anything about your digestion, your metabolism, the benefits of carbohydrates and fiber and fat in your diet. None of that stuff. Yet we are still being encouraged to focus on calories. And the issue we can't ignore is the evidence that says 25% of people who restrict what they eat go on to develop an eating disorder. And eating disorders have the highest mortality rates among mental health illnesses. Never mind the risk of malnutrition, a compromised immune system, effects on bone health, fertility, along with lavish side servings of guilt, shame, punishment, and redemption. So the other thing that worries me on food and weight tracking apps is these calorie limits that they set. And I'm constantly amazed and shocked about the number of people who are allocated a personalized limit of 1,200 calories. Like 1,200 calories? My dog eats more than that. And like it's enough to sustain a toddler, but not an adult. Yet it's like the magic number. Now, MyFitnessPal say, listen to this, eating plans of 1,500 calories for men and 1,200 calories for women are safe and effective in achieving weight loss. I mean, that's like bollocks, isn't it? I mean, what the hell is that based on? And then, kind of veering off a little bit, but if we think about regimented diet programs like Weight Watchers and Noom, similarly, they are based on a 1,200 calorie intake, but it's just hidden behind a point system. So it doesn't feel like calorie counting and it's color coded. And I don't know if you've ever tried just eating 1,200 calories a day, but it's brutal. It nearly ruined me. And I've spoken to countless women who believe 1,200 calories was the right amount for them because they were told that. And it was ample, it was good for weight loss, and that would make you healthier. But have you ever wondered where that number has come from? In 1918, so we're talking, late Victorian times, a doctor called Lulu Hunt Peters, she published a best-selling book called Diet and Health with Key to the Calories. And it was during the time when body image ideals were shifting to thin is in from a kind of more bosomy, curvy, desirable figure. And her solution was to keep your weight under control. But that wasn't all. It was also about being patriotic, because diet and health came out around the end of World War I, and whilst rationing wasn't law, for some it was important for Americans not to hoard food in their own anatomy. So she explained in her book that hereafter you're going to eat calories of food. Instead of saying, I don't know where this accent's come from, by the way, it's very British, isn't it? Instead of saying one slice of bread or a piece of pie, you will say 100 calories of bread, 300 calories of pie. And it took hold. From when it became a bestseller in the mid-1920s, it's like this has influenced the practice of calorie counting for nearly 100 years. And it's like we just seem stuck. Why aren't we moving on? Although Noom earlier this year increased their calorie limit by a whopping 10%, from 1,200 to 1,310 for women and from 1,400 to 1,540 for men. I mean, like, whoop-de-doo. This is not enough. This is not enough food to nourish our body, to keep us safe and healthy. It's no wonder we get kind of catastrophic physical and emotional health consequences from starving our bodies. So one good question, I suppose the $6 million question is, how can I stop stressing about what I'm eating? So I'm going to give you 3 tips, basically to help you stop or move away from counting calories. So the first one, delete the goddamn app. I know this sounds dramatic, but if you're someone who is obsessing about the numbers, then it's likely that the tracking is negatively impacting your life on a day-to-day basis, which means you're probably better off not tracking anymore. So you go and pick up your phone and you go to the app and you hold the app icon down with your thumb. You take a deep breath and you press uninstall and then go for a walk or make a cup of tea or coffee or something, just something else. Now, if you can't go cold turkey because that might create even more anxiety and cause things to spiral out of control, how about you think about, could I track a bit less? It's the same principle I use with weighing. If chucking your scales away feels too much, then look to weigh yourself less frequency. That's okay. So to reduce your tracking behaviors, take small steps by, say, entering your stuff in except your snacks. Or if you don't snack, don't put your lunch in and see how you feel. Despite your mind telling you the consequences will be dire if you don't, the reality is the consequences may well be dire if you don't stop tracking. Ultimately, you need to find a system that works for you, but it's also okay to ask for support or help with this. This stuff can be hard. Number 2, I would use some mantras, affirmations, positive phrases. Now, I know these don't work in isolation, but when you're feeling brainwashed by that voice that says, be careful, don't eat too much of that. Are you sure you need that? What did you do that for? It can be helpful to shift this distorted narrative to some more respectful and supportive phrases. So how about these? I will see all food equally. No food is good or bad. I am more than the food I eat. The foods I choose do not impact my self-worth or who I am. What I ate yesterday does not dictate what I eat today. I respect my body for all it does for me. I am choosing to treat it that way as well. It's okay not to know what my body needs right now. I'm figuring it out. So maybe pick a phrase you feel drawn to and allow it to be your mantra of the day or the week. Speak it, write it down, think it. Let it remind you you are worthy of eating and enjoying food. It does not have to hold any power over you. In reference to that last one, not knowing what your body needs, this brings me on to my 3rd tip, which is to check in with your hunger and fullness levels. Now, this is often easier said than done because if you've been ignoring your hunger for any length of time, you may well find you have no idea what hunger or comfortable fullness feels like. The signals often go underground as a result of restriction. I mean, what's the point of your body repeatedly telling you to do something for it just to be completely ignored? So part of this piece is eating enough and eating regularly, but ask yourself the question, am I hungry? And there is an intuitive eating hunger scale where you can rate your hunger from a 0 for hunger and fullness from a scale of 0 to 10. I'll put a link in the show notes to that as well. And I'm going to be doing some more episodes on this around, determining what hunger and fullness feels like for you. So that's kind of where we're at because I'm running out of time rapidly and I want to move on to my pick and mix. So come back and join me in just a second. Okie dokie, folks, let's open up the pick and mix. I'm just going to pause for a second because I think in relation to what I've just been talking about, it's a tricky conversation to have. My intention has been to give you some insight into kind of the thinking behind these apps, the reality of the user experience, some of the pros and cons, mostly the cons. I hope you found it maybe reassuring and helpful. But if it has triggered you, please take care of yourself. And if you want to reach out and share some of what you've been thinking or what's come up for you, I'm really open to hearing that and hoping I can help as well. So pick a mix. I haven't had a good old moan in ages, but I feel today is the day. Very possibly hormonally driven. And I wanted to kind of keep it in a theme of this episode. So we're kind of sticking with calories for this one. Boris, this is for you. And Sajid Javid, Secretary of State for Health and Social Care for the UK. Your obesity strategy stinks. Your focus on weight and calorie counting couldn't be more ill-informed. Rather than develop educational resources and support, encourage empowerment, and address the wider issues of health that exist in our societies, you relinquish your responsibility to provide any effective support with your common sense approach. Well, if this is your common sense, guys, then you need to get yourself educated. You have taken away our agency, the right to choose what we eat based on actual useful information, and the right to choose not to see bloody calories on menus when we go out to a restaurant or order a takeaway or delivery. The numbers that people can fixate upon that can trigger obsessive behaviours and cause actual physical and emotional mental health harm. We already live in a society that normalises disordered eating. Let's not introduce our children to the concept of choosing a number rather than something that is enjoyable to eat. Now, Hope Virgo, I follow her on Instagram and LinkedIn. She has written a wonderful open letter that is calling the government to take 3 steps to address the concerns associated with adding calories to menus that was released the other week. So basically, 1, make a commitment that the evaluation of the new legislation to label menus with calories will happen in the first year, with a commitment that members from the eating disorder community and experts will be involved in this review. Because despite the government saying that they have been involved, they bloody well haven't. Number 2, to make it mandatory for every single restaurant that meets the criteria for mandatory calorie labelling, will also offer a no-calorie menu choice for those who wish to request this. And to note, you can ask a restaurant for a calorie-free menu. I think you just need to do it in advance. Number 3, to remove the labelling of calories on children's menus in all restaurants immediately. Yeah, okay. So Hope has been doing incredible work in her Dump the Scales campaign. She's contributed, she's leading the Hearts, Minds, Genes Coalition for Eating Disorders. She's doing wonderful stuff in this area. So yeah, she could be a good person to go and follow if you don't follow her. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've liked what you've heard, please do subscribe so you don't miss out on what's coming next. I can't quite remember what's coming next, so I'll put it on my social media. Anyway, if you'd like to carry on the conversation, please email me at mel@wakemannutrition.com or come find me on Instagram. I'm at Cake Over Keto or Mel_Wakeman_RNUTR. You can find me on Patreon at Mel Wakeman, all one word. That's the food freedom community that I run. So take care of yourselves. I will see you in 2 weeks' time. See you then. Thanks so much again. Bye.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.